Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our fortnightly Q&A. Tonight, we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Scott Smith. How are you going?
Good, thanks, Laura. Daniel, how are you?
Yeah, had better days, but we're feeling a bit better now, mate. Like Laura, we're all dosed up on some flu tablets, but we're getting there.
Very good.
And Laura, you done a real good job without having any notes in front of you there today.
I know. I started rolling off the tongue. I started talking. I didn't realise it. I was like, oh, just keep going. Don't think about it. But no, that's good.
What did you get up to today, Scott?
I went to work today, so I work at Taronga Western Plains Zoo. Been there for 24 years this year. But get up at 5:30, train a couple of young dogs from about 6 and train them before I go to work, and then do my day's work and come home and train some more dogs and go from there. But spend my daytime hours with black rhinos at the zoo, training them up and looking after them.
Mate, fun fact, when we were just talking prior to going live there, you just explained the difference between a black rhino and a white rhino. Can you elaborate on that for us, to everyone listening?
Yeah, well, they're quite different animals. The difference has got nothing to do with the colour, but it's probably got to do with the contrast between the two species. Black rhinos are a solitary animal, can be quite aggressive and very unforgiving. So charge first, ask questions later, and they're just hardwired not to forgive. Whereas your white rhinos, they live in what they call a crash of rhinos, and they've got their whole herd to look out for each other, sort of thing, Whereas when you have solitary animals, they know that they're it and that they've got to be on lookout. So it's probably the same as you walking through busload of people walking through a dark forest at night and a whole bus group of you, as opposed to walking through there by yourself. The black rhinos, they seem to be on edge quite a lot, and any little thing they can be jumpy and very suspicious of everything. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot to get inside their head, and what I refer to in dogs as well is building up that friendship account. So you've got to have that trust account. The black rhinos are the same. If they don't trust you, and if black rhinos don't want to do it, there's not much you're going to be able to do about it.
The rhinos that you're working with, are they bred in captivity?
All the rhinos that we currently have are bred in captivity, yes. Yeah.
And they still display that kind of behaviour?
Absolutely. Yep.
Oh, wow.
And some, that most of them I've sort of been there when they're a little calf and come in and rub up at your leg, and but that survival instinct is just incredible, and that's the fact that they don't forgive. That's and that's what I suppose is defies a domesticated animal versus a wild animal with any species, really. Like if an exotic animal forgive, they wouldn't be alive. Like if a lion attacks them or whatever, the next day comes, they don't go, oh, okay, Mr. Lion, it's a new day, we'll just wipe the slate clean. No, it doesn't happen that way. They're just very hardwired not to forgive, and that's their survival instinct. And black rhinos are probably more in tune with that, the fact that they're a solitary animal. Yeah, and tigers and lions are the same thing. Like lions live in a pride, whereas tigers, they're a solitary animal. They're a lot less forgiving as well.
That's cool. Mate, what other animals have you worked with prior to your rhinos?
First couple of years at the zoo, I sort of worked around and did majority animals, but ungulates is what I know, growing up on a farm. Spent 8 years on elephants. That was feel very privileged to have been involved with elephants in the time period that I did, when we used to do a lot of free contact. That was certainly, a highlight of my zoo career, I think, working with those guys. Definitely some of my best working days on elephants, and I could probably say some of my worst as well. But it's very hard not to, you do get attached to them. The fact that they're so intelligent, so logic thinking, a little bit like a horse, a little bit like a dog, but more like a 5-year-old child. The more they can understand, the happy they are to do it. Yeah.
And so, what's a typical day at the zoo like for you? Like, what sort of jobs and activities are you doing with rhinos? Because I could imagine it'd be very different to going out and training dogs.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, a lot of the principles, some of the principles are the same, but we do a lot of husbandry. We have there's 3 of us that look after 10 rhinos at the moment. So a lot of shoveling manure and checking them out, and we're treating a couple with various ailments at the moment. So you're doing any medication and feed them at different intervals with different things. So black rhinos are a browsing animal, so they're predominantly fed browse. They should be fed 100% browse, but that's logistically not really possible in a zoo environment. So we do supplement that with lucerne hay, which they do pretty well on. But get fed about 3 a day with various things.
So obviously you're in Dubbo. Have you always been in Dubbo?
Yeah, born and bred Dubbo. Yeah, grew up on a farm on the outskirts of Dubbo. Didn't go much on school. That didn't really agree with me.
Yeah.
So leaving school was a good decision. Left school at the end of year 10. I did my work experience. I'm actually a saddler by trade, but don't tell anyone that. So I left school on a Thursday and went to Backerburg Saddlery, and said to Ross, any chance of a job? And he said, yeah, as long as you understand you're the last one on. So if things get quiet, you're the first one off. So
Yeah.
I was still there 9 years later, and Ross and Nikki, and they're sort of like a second family to me, really. They were, yeah. But I got sick of being shut up inside. I'm an outdoors person, and just But horses, we had a riding school growing up, and so I've done a lot with horses, and still do a little bit to help people with just horse problems and natural horsemanship and things like that. But horses have always been, I don't know, I suppose because I've always had to do it as a kid, and just growing up with it, I've always looked upon horses as work, not necessarily pleasure. And then when I got my animal show going, after just before the zoo, and I did that for 7 years. But the dog training and sheepdog trialing, when I first saw that really sort of caught my eye, and thought, no, this is it. This is what I can do till I'm 80, 90, whatever, as long as I can walk.
What you mentioned your farm animal show there, 7 years. And I've watched the clip there. It's awesome. I've never seen anyone put a horse on the back of the truck and just stay there for me, mate. It's awesome. But what inspired that to come along?
Well, off the farm, I sort of always dabbled in, doing tricks or whatever with horses or dogs or whatever. And then when I was at the saddlery, I was sort of looking at what else am I going to do, and anyway, I got approached by Philip Ritchie to what I consider going out to Dundallamore Homestead, which is a national trust property just down the road from the zoo, and starting up a bit of a leather workshop out there. So I did that, and then he wanted to get some animals in, so I just brought some animals in from the farm, and they were doing a few little tricks. And anyway, Philip one day persuaded me to get my animals out and in front of a coach group, and he was doing the talking, and I used to get a bit frustrated with what he was saying at times. So it got to the point, I was just super shy. I'd be sitting in my little workshop absolutely shitting myself. But anyway, I got that frustrated with what he was saying that that was enough of incentive for me to start talking, and then it sort of evolved from there. So I had a horse and a dog, I think, at that point, and then I got a couple of potty calves and reared them both up and picked the best one and educated him to saddle, and yeah, just sort of evolved from there. So, and then it turned out to be I was doing less of the leather work and more of my animal show, and got to the point where I was getting, sort of 3/4 of my income from my animals. And whilst I was based there at Dundallamore Homestead, I used to travel to different agricultural shows throughout New South Wales, just pack up the whole show and take it in a little gooseneck. But they're all chapters in your life. It was good, but it was, all my animals were getting old towards the end because I did it for 7 years.
Yep.
And at the time, you don't realise how much time you put into them until you go to find a replacement for, like a replacement horse and replacement dog. And and in the meantime, I've met my wife, Joanne, and she's sort of saying, if we're going to get married and have kids, something's got to change, because I was away every weekend. So anyway, but I was ready for the change anyway, that 7-year itch. And that's when I started looking at the zoo. But, the animal show was great. I met a lot of nice people, and that's how I, got involved with Toby Lindsay, and I got my first dog off Toby. That's the dog you saw in the show.
Yep.
And I used to strike Pip Hudson quite a bit around the agricultural shows, so got to know Pip pretty well, and only used to get to probably, 1 or 2 trials a year in those days. But and then we stopped trialing when I went to the zoo and when we had our own family. So I got 2 kids, and Alec and Briette, they're sort of 19 and 22 now. So, and I've been back into dogs for probably the last 10 years, I suppose. Yeah, and been at the zoo for the last 24 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was some of your biggest takeaways, you think, from your farm show and working with your animals there? And then, just there, what were some of your biggest takeaways or your lessons you learned working with the animals just you and them?
Biggest takeaway from it, I suppose, is don't stress when things go wrong, because there's plenty of things to do. Just roll with it, and just try and I used to know that if I, and we used to get a lot of coach groups at Dundallamore, and I knew if I hadn't made them laugh by a certain time, I thought, oh, there's a tough crowd. But, I used to have a few little things up my sleeve, and the whip cracking at the end, that was a very funny one. And I used to do it under lights as well. The dog would love it, doing the show under lights. Yeah, he'd find another 3 gears. Yeah.
I love the adaptability that you had to have dealing with, half a dozen different animals within a short space as well. I thought that was pretty cool. That shows a lot of your natural feel for an animal, not just a dog.
Yeah, yep. And I guess that gets back to just understanding the differences between your prey animals and your predators and what motivates them. Like the prime motivators for your prey animal is safety and comfort, whereas your dog's like humans. Our prime motivation is praise, recognition, and material things. And when you add a sheepdog into that, well, they're motivated greatly by that desire to work. Yeah. Whereas I can tell my dog, good boy, and he'll stand there and he'll wag his tail, and that's good payment for him. Whereas I can, my horse could do something good, and I can say, good horse. It means absolutely nothing. But if they're doing right, leave me alone. Yeah. Standing on the ute, leave me alone. Standing on the drum, leave me alone.
Even when you laid him down, mate, and you could tell there was no force needed there, like he just happily just laid there for you. I think you might even flicked him a bit of sugar.
Yeah.
At one point. Going back, that would have been 24 odd years ago, like further than that.
Yep.
Positive reinforcement would have been frowned on back then as well with when training animals, right?
What was that, sorry?
a lot of positive reinforcement, like rewarding animals would have been frowned upon back then. A lot of people would still into a lot of pressure. So you were doing something
Yeah,
different.
yeah, but the prime motivation for for those prey animals is safety and comfort. Yep, and it's
Absolutely.
not necessarily. Um, it can be just that annoying fly, take their breath away. If I want, I taught my horse to jump on the back of the ute and not move until I ask him to. So we worked through. I'd park my truck into the table drain, and I'd get him up there. And if he didn't want to go over close to it, if he didn't want to go near it, I'd take him away and would take his breath away. You want to have a rest? Okay, you have a rest over here at the thing, and then before long he's jumping on there. But if you want to hop off, I'm not going to force you to hop off. I want to cause my idea to be his idea, and it's his idea to be standing up there saying, "No, no, 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 you can't touch me," because he knew the consequences of hopping off the ute was I was going to take his breath away and just make him run.
Yep.
Yep. Whereas they're just motivated by different things. Your predators and your prey animals. Yep. Or dogs and your prey animals. Yeah.
And
You're
you
right.
said you got your first dog from Toby Lindsay. What made you go and get a dog?
Toby come out to Dundallamore Homestead might have even been an Easter weekend or something like that. Come out and worked his ducks. Had a little duck obstacle, and that's what caught me. I thought, this is it. I've got to have myself a piece of that. And Toby and I got on well. So, Mate was the dog's name, Lindsay's mate. So I used to take him out to Toby's once a week, and once a month take him out a bottle of whiskey, and that was Toby's payment. And he'd tell me what I was doing wrong, and then it just sort of all evolved from there. But in the early days with the horses, I got involved with Pirelli Natural Horsemanship.
Yep.
There was an instructor come through, and a guy by the name of Tony Lander, and he strongly encouraged me to get involved in that program, which I did start to pursue it for a while, and but then I was busy enough as it was, and there was a lot of I had to fork out a lot of money, which I wasn't too happy about. But I learned a lot from it, and that foundation, I suppose, has given me a good foundation on understanding prey animals and what their prime motivators are and things like that.
Yeah.
Have you always followed Toby's dog since then, or have you splashed around a bit with different?
Splashed around a bit. I've never had big numbers of dogs. I've got a couple of New Zealand dogs at the moment, and one of Nick Ryan. Got a dog off Nick Ryan, a white dog. I've got 4 trialing at the moment, and 6 altogether, and just I'll often have a couple of outside dogs just to help pay the son's uni fees.
Do you have a particular style or type that you're attracted to?
I really like Pink, the style of Pink, and just I like a dog that has a desire to please. Like I really like that desire to please. Very trainable, smart, wants to be with you, as fast as can be, but as slow as necessary. There is probably no ideal dog, but for sheepdog trialing, Pink's the closest thing that that I think I've had. Yeah. I've had a few nice dogs come through that I've trained for other people, but just her desire to please is really good, which I really like that.
Yeah. And for those that don't know Pink, do you want to give us a bit of a background on where she is? Like, I know she has a lot of New Zealand blood and all that, but to those that don't know, do you want to
she's New Zealand bred. She was brought out, mother was brought out in pup, and she was actually, now she's one of the second litter, but Yeah, so she is pure New Zealand bloodline, and how I come to get her, the family who bred her, Andrew and Brooke, they Andrew rings me up and says, "Well, are you coming to get one of these pups or what?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." And his wife's in the background saying, "Tell him not to worry about coming over. I know what he wants. I know what he likes." And I said, "Oh, well, you better tell me what I like." And she said, "Oh, well, there's one here that just follows me around, wants to be with me all the time, doesn't care what all the other dogs are doing, and just very independent." And anyway, so I'm telling Joanne, my wife, the description of it, and Joanne's going, "Can I have the naming rights?" And I'm going, "Well, does it fit the criteria?" And for my criteria to be, which I think is important to me because I've made the mistake, don't have any of your names that sound similar to your commands, and preferably one syllable. And anyway, so she goes, yeah, fits all the criteria. So I said, "Oh, yeah, what is it?" And she goes, "Oh, Pink from off the singer." You know, when
Yep.
I did, she was very independent, and and she's even a little bit butch. And
Oh, I
I'm
love
not,
it.
not saying Pink the singer cocks a leg to have a wee, but Pink the dog does.
She's probably
It's
not listening
really-
anyway, mate, so it's okay. I think you're safe. But if you are listening, Pink, hey, drop us a line.
Yeah, we'll have her on Dog Talk, see what she likes about dogs.
Yeah. So that's how I come with her, and yeah, had quite a bit of success with her.
Hmm.
Yep.
Bit of success. You say that quite modestly. You have won the National Sheepdog Trial with her, and I believe she was still a maiden dog at the time. Is that correct?
Yeah. Last year we were very lucky, and it was quite a surreal moment. Yeah, she won the maiden at the national, and then was quite unlucky not to win the improver as well. Sheep stood up to her on the bridge and couldn't get them off the bridge. But that's the way sheepdog trialing goes. And then that was still enough. We're still in the final of the Open, and then she went on to win the Open. So, yeah, very surreal moment. Yeah.
Is
Wow.
that one of your biggest wins?
Oh, by a long way.
Yeah.
Yep. A long way. And then with Gem, so Pink was only 2-year-old then, and then Gem, the one that we won it with this year, she's a 9-year-old. So two totally different ends of the spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah. And that New Zealand blood, do you have much else of that in any of your other dogs?
I have Flo, who
Mhm.
is the sires of Pink and Flo were litter mates.
Yep.
Yep. So I have two of those, but Flo's not the quality of dog that Pink is. Yeah.
Mhm. And what is it about that New Zealand blood? Like, I believe you'd have a few dogs come through your kennels at times for other people that do have that blood in it. What is it about it that you like that's made you go and get them?
Oh well, I didn't really seek them out as such. Like I'm quite good mates with Paul Darmody, and he sort of knew about it, and he said they should be good dogs, by some of the best dogs in New Zealand. So I thought, oh, give it a crack. But yeah, some of them can be a bit lazy going to the head, but Pink's a bit of an exception with that. But yeah.
So would you seek more of that blood in the future, or you've sort of got your dogs now that you'd like to breed within your own circles now?
Oh no, I wouldn't say no. It's just having enough kennels, really.
Yeah.
Like I've got 8 boxes, and because I've got 2 young dogs at the moment of my own, as well as I've got 2 outside dogs. So I'm full, at the moment. Yeah.
Do you get in being a collie, and tell me if I'm wrong, but being a bit of a collie man, do you get Kelpies or other breeds come in outside?
Yeah, Yep. Yeah, I've had I get a few kelpies and no sort of no trial kelpies, but
Mhm.
mostly farm kelpies um, that people refer on. Um, Mick and Carolyn send me a few through contacts. Yeah, so I've done a few of them, but I prefer to be, and I've probably got enough. Probably got enough in my contacts now, just with border collies, to stick with them, and I just find it enjoyable training dogs that go on to trial, and you turn up at a trial, and there's 6 or 7 dogs there that you've had some input into their career. I just find that rewarding, and seeing people go around with them. Yeah.
Have you? That's beautiful, mate. Have you had a Kelpie come through and you kind of thought, well, maybe I could try something like this, or you're dedicated to your
No,
collies?
I haven't even come close, mate.
love, love the
Most of
honest-
them been farm kelpies, and there's probably I'm not. There's some very good kelpies out there. Don't get me wrong, but I haven't had come through. And most people that I've had their kelpies for them have probably never really had a good dog. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they're stoked with I ring people up after 2 weeks and give them my opinion of the dog and whether it's worth spending any more money on or not. And when they get them back, they say, "Oh, this is the greatest dog I've ever had, mate."
That's all I wanted.
Yeah. So but I try and give people my honest opinion and leave it up to them whether they want to continue or not. Yeah.
And as someone who has sent a dog to you, I have to admit the updates you give are next to none. Like it's incredible, like the videos, all the rest that you send through. So I just want to, say hats off to you for that. Like it's exactly what's going on with your dog, sort of thing.
Yeah. 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 Oh well, people want to know, and yeah, it's just good to be able to, when they get to a stage where you've got some control over them, to give some feedback and let them know where they're up to, and yeah. And I do find it rewarding. Sometimes it's a bit of work with some crazy ones, but yeah.
What is it about 3 Sheep trialing that keeps you on the hook?
It's the sport where you can experience all emotions in 15 minutes. And it's just you and your dog, like there's no one else to blame. You've just got to shut the outside world off and just really concentrate on what you're doing. It's the ultimate sport where you've got predator and prey animal. You've got your prey animal that, prey animals have got to run to survive. Predators have got to run to eat. They're really just so opposite. And the more your dog's acting like a predator, the more the prey animal is going to act like a prey animal. And the sheep are perceiving the dog's more of a predator every time it's unpredictable, every time it's in close, every time it's running too quick. So it's, there's just I just like the fact that there's so much in the sport, so much. You've got to be and there's one thing to be a good trainer, but to be a good trainer and a good trialer, like, it just takes years. It's not a sport you can go into and think, "Oh, I'm going to be at top of the game in 6 months in this." It's a long apprenticeship, and I guess I've been fortunate to be in an area where I've seen some really top trialers, and you learn a lot from watching those. And every now and again they'll let something slip, and you'll think, "Oh yeah, I didn't know that," or whatever. And also the big thing too is learning where you're losing the points. Because there's probably still things where I'm thinking, "Oh God, I didn't know that." And anyway, so I just like the fact that it's just you and your dog, and you get out there and block the rest of the world out, and it's what I feel is what I know, just having that good understanding of predator and prey and their relationship with each other.
You mentioned they're like top trialers a couple of times. Like, what attributes do you think that these people personally hold that makes them that good?
Their ability to read stock, to be good trainers. Well, just exactly that. Just having that understanding, and they might necessarily be able to tell you or teach you, but they do it themselves, sort of thing. If you're just knowing what to look for and things like that, but there's many different ways of training a dog, and I'm not one for going through lots of dogs. I'll normally buy a pup and just do the best I can with that pup, as opposed to, someone might have, 3 or 4 pups, keep four pups out of the litter and keep the best one. But, I've just sort of always made the best of what I have. I don't go through many dogs. But, there are a lot of good handlers, and I don't know, I suppose they're probably all different in their own way, but when they get out on the ground there, the things that make them all similar is their ability to read stock, read situations, anticipate where that sheep's going to go, and to be able to train the dog.
Has there been anyone that's had a lot of influence on you with your dogs over the years?
Probably many, I suppose. Definitely Toby Lindsay, who got me started. I've learned a lot from just watching the masters, like Mick and lots of people. I went out to Greg Prince's once or twice, and that just see all those pictures in Mick's house, and Greg and Jan's house, where Greg's just got them set up around the kitchen, and that's when I thought, geez, I've got to get myself one of them. So it's just, don't know, it's just a very addictive sport. Can't get enough of it. Work gets in the way.
Do you like to have a team of similar type of dogs, or do you like something a little different in each of your dogs?
Well, I'd love to have some. I'd love to have quieter dogs that sort of a bit move nice and quiet. But it's probably one of the hardest things to teach them, to move nice and slow. But at the same time, if things get a bit heated, I'll want them, as I said earlier, I want them fast as can be, but as slow as necessary. And that's a big ask, but that's what I sort of work towards. But I guess I have got a variety of dogs, with my 2 New Zealand dogs, and Ryan's Jack and old Gem. Gem, the one that last Nationals, she's 9-year-old, and as a young dog, sheep didn't like her. Like, she's very, very busy. A lot of work there, and it's taken a lot of years to, for her to be thinking with her head rather than, just overworking and whatever. But, she's very quick. And even now, like, if I let him out for a poop or something, she's the one that slithers off if she thinks I'm not looking, and watches and goes to find the sheep. And I'll look around and she'll have them in the yard, just by herself. But just that desire to work, it's just incredible with some of them. Whereas, the New Zealand dogs, Pink and Flo, they won't leave my side. They're happy to lay on the veranda. And whereas some of the other dogs, they're just switched on all the time, just don't switch off. Yeah,
that's cool. I just had a question, and my brain fog just nailed me. What was it?
All those cold and flu tablets are kicking in.
Oh yeah, I shouldn't have taken the nighttime ones yet. I was trying not to sneeze there before. My head felt like it was going to blow up. We were talking about
That's right. With the 3 sheep trialing, obviously you've seen a lot of people come and go over the years. What is it that keeps you coming back? And I know you said it's addictive and all the rest, but what is it that keeps you coming back week in and week out? like you said, you feel all the emotions in one run in the 15 minutes you can. But what is it that keeps you going?
Oh, well, I suppose it takes so long to get a dog up to standard of trialing, and the more I do it, I'm sort of, I guess I say I'm guilty of, and we probably all are guilty of starting your dog too young. And I know, of something that I've done, like, just trying to get out there, but it is better off. I think mental maturity plays a big factor in it.
Yeah.
But what keeps you going? Well, just that lure of hopefully getting into a final every now and again.
Yeah.
Finding some sheep that suit one of your dogs. And you often see. You've got to have a range of dogs that sort of slightly different that suit different sheep, because you'll see it now where you'll get all the dogs in one final at one trial, and then you go to the next trial, which might only be 3 days later, and none of those same dogs are in that next final.
Yeah.
That happened plenty of times.
Yeah, there's just so much in the sport. You got to be a good trainer, have a good dog, but you've also got to have a lot of luck. Yeah.
I remember what my question was. You've been trialing for a while. You've had some success. You're training other people's dogs. How do you feel being a bit of a mentor now for younger generations coming through that look up to you and ask you questions? Like, how do you handle that?
As far as training dogs,
Training dogs, advice. Like when someone with lesser experiences comes and talks to you at a trial, or might call you during the week. Like, how do you try to handle that?
oh no, I think that's important, and we've got to, I think that's looking after our sport as well. Like sheepdog trialing. You won't get anything more Australian, and we've got to have those people coming through that have that desire as well. So, I suppose the more people that catch the disease or get hooked on it, the better it is. But I try and explain things to people in a way that makes sense to me, and I'm probably a little bit different. Just getting back to training outside dogs, and it's probably a lot of trialers out there probably disagree with me, but when I first get a dog in of someone else's, I spend 3 days on lead, and I'll establish the stop on lead, and I'll establish recall, and I'll establish stop, but I'm paying it with food, with a bit of chicken, with a bit of mince or something like that. I do use food in establishing, or what I say is building up that friendship account, because, even when I finish training, I might have my pouch on, and I might go over and end the session and give them a good bit, because their desire to carry on and work sheep, well, there's got to be something in it for them. We all like to be paid, and dogs are no different. Praise, recognition, material things. Like you've got to be something in it for them. They do love to work, but when I need to build up that friendship account really quick, and I use food to do that. And particularly if I'm training a new behaviour, like if I'm trying to teach the dog to walk backwards, like I'll use food for that. If I'm teaching them to go up on the bridge, I'll use food for that. I just feel it's just another tool in your belt to help them find what you're trying to get. A lot of times it's your dog's got to perceive that it's training you. Yeah.
Make it believe that the animal made the decision. We just narrow the options.
Yep.
Absolutely, mate.
Yeah, I quite enjoy, teaching people and helping people. Yeah, there's been quite a few people give me a few tips over the years.
You mentioned like that you love going to a trial and see some dogs that you've had an influence on. When you see those particular type of people, the trialing people, is there a common occurrence or something that you tend to see in the dogs that as a collective, or is at all a little bit different?
No, I'd have to say they're all pretty different. All the dogs are different. You know, sometimes they're yeah, and a lot of it comes down to the handler too. You know, sometimes they're got a little bit out of control or whatever. But it's it's very different for me having the dog doing something at home on my sheep that are quiet and educated, as opposed to when someone gets out on the trial ground. You know.
Yep.
Yeah. What about, do you see like a collective issue, I guess might be what Daniel's asking,
Yeah.
in terms of, 8 out of 10 dogs don't do this, or 8 out of 10 dogs have trouble with that?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah.
No, not
No,
that I
that's
can
cool.
think of, because all dogs will have their strengths and weaknesses. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And being able to get your hands on so many different dogs and different types of dogs, all at different stages, do you think that's helped you in terms of training and going on with your own dogs and new dogs and different pups?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt about that. Yep, yep. The more you do, well, for one, you like to think you get better at it, and for two, it gives you a better understanding on what you like in a dog. You know, like there'll be dogs that come through, and you think, I'll ring them up and say, "Oh, I don't think your dog's any good, mate. I think you're better off leaving it here." There are dogs that that stand out, that are you wouldn't mind having in your kennels, and there are others where you're happy to see them
Yeah.
go and wish them good luck. Yeah.
I think that doesn't matter what you're teaching a dog, like you always have those ones.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, 'cause they're all different. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mate, we mentioned there earlier you've won the national. Are there any other
Twice.
twice, sorry, must add. Mate, are there any other moments that really stand out to you, or highlights for you in your trialing career thus far?
No, mate, that's about it. I've got a tendency to save myself for the nationals. No,
Oops, sorry, you go.
no, that's it. No, those no, they're definitely the highlights, the nationals. Yeah, which I think that's the Melbourne Cup of the trial arena.
Mhm.
I feel the way um, Sarah and the girls run it down there. It's just tremendous. I think this year they had 6,700 paying guests come through the gate. No
Oh, wow.
other trial gets that. That's
No,
incredible.
it's awesome.
Runs like clockwork.
Mm.
Yeah, very well supported by the Canberrians. Yeah.
Yeah, and the ACT government too. Like it's really cool to see how
Yeah. Yeah.
how the sport can grow. I guess it opens up a lot of different people's eyes to something that to us is so normal, which I think is pretty amazing what they're doing there in terms of the general public. So
Yeah. And to have the team of volunteers that they have, it just takes the workload off, and they're all the volunteers. They're all got their particular areas that they're skilled in, and they know their job, and yeah, no, it's very well run. Yeah.
any goals or something you're striving towards with your dogs?
Well, obviously, I'd like to represent New South Wales and Australia.
Yeah.
That's probably the pinnacle. Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll get there one day. Yeah.
No doubt.
Has there been a one key phrase or advice that someone's given you that stuck with you throughout your trialing?
Yeah. Remember, old Toby would say, "The slower you go, the further you'll go," and that's pretty right. There's so much in keeping those sheep thinking logically.
Yeah.
If they're not thinking logically, your dogs chock a block up them. It's just they just and if they're not thinking logically, they've got no hope of getting them through those obstacles unless they're forced through. The slower you go, the further you'll go. It's like you see any good runs. It all happens, and from a spectator's point of view, it probably looks quite boring. But the rest of the competitors are on the sideline just in awe. Because it just flows, and it just because they're logic thinking, they're thinking straight when they're got their head up in the air. They're not thinking straight. They're thinking, very spatial, and I want to get out of here. Yeah.
Oh, I just had another ray gun moment. That's what I was going to ask. When someone might be thinking of getting into 3-sheep trialing, or a novice handler might come up to you, is there a bit of advice you might give them about selecting a particular dog for themselves?
Selecting a dog or a pup or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing that, I remember asking, Greg Prince and, Pip Hudson, and, and the common theme is, get one you like. If you like it, you'll tend to put the work into it. And for some reason, I like a dog that wants to be with me. I do like a symmetrical dog in their markings, and that's really all you can go off at that when they're that young. Just get one you like. Spend time. They don't learn anything. Like your child won't learn anything going to school once a week. You gotta just spend time and get that bond. You got to get that friendship account up, because if you haven't got that friendship account up, every time you go to block your dog or make a correction or something, you're making a withdrawal out of that friendship account. And at the end of the day, when you're out on the trial ground, I feel that friendship account is what they're going to try that little bit harder for you, but you still got to have that respect, because they're a pack animal, and you also need to be. It's important for you to be the alpha in all of that. Yeah.
Do any of your clients ever consult you before bringing you a dog, like as to how they go about purchasing one, like for their own needs?
Not really. Most people have already got a dog, or because I'm booked out so far in advance, I'm slowly educating people to book them in when they're born. Like if they breed a litter themselves or something. I've got quite a few people that are booked in that they ring me up and say, "Oh, the litter's born now. I'm booking it in for 12 months' time or whatever." But yeah, most people sort of pick their own dog or whatever.
Have you ever had a crack at another form of trialing?
At the Geary Stock Dog Championships, I went in that with Ryan's Jack in the what they have, 3 sheep and the cattle in the yard. I had no idea what I was doing. Had a good run in the 3 sheep, but yeah, no, I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah, but no, haven't really sunk my teeth into it. Probably good too, but times, just getting that leave and things like that. So I think my strength is probably with my 3 sheep, and it probably suits me a bit better, I think. Yeah, I just love the psychology behind it all and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're obviously quite into the psychology behind it all. Where have you learnt and or who have you learnt it off? Like,
well, I suppose my background with horses, like I've always helped people with horse problems and natural horsemanship and things like that. So that's given me a good understanding of prey animals and what motivates them. And then probably my zoo environment has helped me to an aspect as well.
yeah,
But there's certain principles that are relevant to your prey animal, and there's certain principles that are relevant to your predator. But there is an element which I often say to people that's universal. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's your 2-year-old child, whether it's a horse, whether it's a dog or whatever. Reinforcement is something they want, and the very last behaviour they're doing when they get that reinforcement is what you're going to see more of.
yeah.
So you need to establish, okay, so what's reinforcement for my dog at this moment? What does it want to do? Okay, it wants to go and chase the sheep. Okay, so if your dog breaks the bell, or like breaks before you cast, or
Yeah.
just in your training session, and you think, oh well, I'll fix it up next time. No, you've just reinforced what the behaviour you don't want. Like, or if they're cutting in, stop them. Stop them is like you're taking away that desire, that privilege of working the sheep. Bring them back to where you started from. Resend them again. Okay, if I want that dog to go out around that tree, if he goes to cut in, stop. Bring him back to that point. Set him again. I'll put a bit of pressure on him just with my energy or whatever, and he goes around the tree, and next thing he's allowed to get to the sheep. So I want that dog to be saying, Jesus, that Scott's easy to train. All I got to do is run around that tree and he lets me get the sheep. So it's they a lot of times they've got to perceive what that they're training us.
Yeah.
We've got to have that understanding of reinforcement for them at that moment, whether it be, me giving him a little bit of meat when he walks up and sniffs the sheep on the nose, or when in a bridge situation, or whether or on a lead and I've asked him for a stop and I go up and pay him with a bit of food, or letting him run to the sheep. It's a lot of times it's like charades. I can't tell him or make him. I've got to set the environment up where he's got to get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how much you emphasize that reinforcement creates behavior.
Yep.
I think so many people still try to do it with pressure, but pressure doesn't create behavior.
No.
It stops behavior.
Yep.
I love that. You got that. I love how you got it out with.
They learn through the release. Like you've got to be able to, and you've got to be able to control that pressure. Like you still use pressure, but that could be just you lifting up your energy or whatever. But there's got to be stages to any pressure. So, and then you've got to be able to release it quick. So they learn through the release, and that's what that's what makes the difference, I suppose, with someone who's I feel is a good trainer. Like I've had people come up and say, "But how do you get inside their head so quick?" Well, I do that with food and just having that a clearer message. I feel, just having that clearer message and having that big friendship account. So when I do lift my arms up or whatever, I've got some credit in that friendship account to withdraw on. Yeah.
Do you have any young dogs coming through that look promising for yourself?
Yeah. I've got one grandson of Rabbit, one off Justin Lawman. He's quite good. He's just a bit over 12 months old. I think he'll be all right, but I won't be rushing out on the ground with him. Like he's does really well at home. And I took him over to Windia with me when I did a school over there a couple of weeks ago and put him on some sheep in a different environment, and he's not ready. It was quite a different dog. Yeah. And then I've got another one that's out of flow by Jack, one of my own breed. So yeah, I've got one of hers, but she's only 6 months old yet. But we'll wait and see. I don't like to start them too young. I do introduce them to sheep, but that's more sheep on the bridge. Pin the sheep up against the side, just hold it there with my leg, and then just bring the dog up to the sheep, and just having it comfortable doing that. Give it a little treat, just having it comfortable so it's in close. I'm looking upon it these days as I want to create the dog, the ideal dog that I want first up, rather than allowing the dog to make mistakes and then think, oh, I'll modify that later. If you know what I mean. Like so what I want in a dog, I want a nice, calm dog, and I want a strong dog, and I want it to be able to walk up to the sheep. So I want to try and create that dog that's comfortable around sheep in a close proximity, rather than a dog that walks up and gets to about a metre and then darts in. If that makes sense.
Yep.
Which I've got a couple of dogs that do that, and you can bet your life you're at an obstacle and they'll blow it up. And so just trying to think about ways I can, and that's what I feel about teaching the stop on lead first and paying it with a bit of food. Like I want stop to mean no movement, not 10 steps and then I want to wind it back. I want to stop means no movement, right from the word go. Yeah.
Very cool. Mate, is there someone you'd like to see us sit down and have a yarn with on Dog Talk?
Oh, gee, I didn't know that one was coming. You've had some pretty incredible people on your show, and it's a credit to you, really, both of you, what you've done. It's been great for our sport. You've probably had the people that I probably would have picked.
That's
Yeah.
all right.
That's all right. If something comes to mind,
On that one.
you know where to find us.
Yeah.
Is there any advice you give to someone starting out, or you deal with a lot of people day to day? Is there any advice you'd like to just reiterate to people as like your tagline?
Sorry, you might have to repeat that. I couldn't hear over the coffee.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right. Is there any advice that you'd like to give to someone starting out, or you deal with a lot of people day to day, as a bit of like a tagline?
I'll probably just start out with a reputable dog breed. Just go to a nice line that you know is tried and tested. Doesn't no guarantees. But the old saying, you can't make a silk purse out of a pig's ear. You've got to have a bit of quality to start with, and and then just do your best to get yourself educated. Ask lots of questions. Go to trial and just watch. Just look, stand with someone and just ask questions. I think I was trying to think of the point when I started coming back where I think it made a difference. And one of the things I sort of had to make a mental decision, as in, I used to think, okay, well, I've got, you start out with 100 points, whatever, and if they didn't come quite into the square, whatever, properly, or they come into the square and then they drifted out and then I put them back in again. It's not till you sort of make that mental decision, okay, well, I'm going to not lose any points, I'm going to keep them on course, don't let them drift and things like that. But the best way to learn is just do it and ask questions. If you can get to any clinics, but usually most people will happy to share some knowledge with you. But probably the biggest thing is talk less, listen more. Yeah,
I like that one. I really like that one. That's a cool one. Talk less, listen more.
Yeah, and that goes with your dog too. Like I. Like you don't, to give a command, as I said earlier, I like one syllable commands, and I don't think it's necessary to be justifying your command to your dog while you're out there, blurting out 10 words, and in all those 10 words, there was one command.
Yeah.
Your dog's got to make that many split decisions out there, or you have as well with your dog. The more verbal words that are coming out of your mouth, like it's just ends up being background noise. I feel, it's like, it's like if you go into a crowded room and there's one person that just will not be quiet, just constantly talking, they just become background noise. But then there's one person in that room, and as soon as they start to speak, everyone listens. I can see you smiling, Daniel. You know exactly what
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So less is better. Yeah. Talk less, listen more. Yeah.
Beautiful. One last question, as always, something a little bit different.
What'd you get today, Laura? I'm curious to see what this one is.
I'm rehashing an old one, but if you were a crayon, what color would you be and why?
If I was a crayon,
Hmm.
don't know. Probably have to say green, I suppose, because I'm an outdoors person.
That's
picked-
good. Yep.
I was thinking green myself. And that my reason for that was just the way you go about interacting and handling with animals and open-minded. You don't really care what other people think about the way you do things. You just do what's best by the animal and what you perceive as best by it.
Yeah, yep. And there's lots of ways of training animal, and I'm not saying my way's right and everyone else is wrong, but I just think back to Mother Nature. What's natural? What's Mother Nature? Okay, predators are motivated by. Your dog's motivated by praise, recognition, and material things. Humans are the same. We can. I could say, Daniel, you've got employee of the month. You've got this laminated piece of paper to say that you're you're employee of the month. You're happy with that. I could tell my dog, good boy, good, good, good. He's standing there wagging his tail. And like, and just getting back to training. If we can just revert back to that, doing all that stuff on the lead. Like I like to have that word good loaded with, paired with some food reinforcements, right in those early days, like I'll give it food good, food good, food good. But at the same time, if I'll give it a bone and I'll take that bone away. And if there's any sign of growling or whatever, and, I'll grab it by the scruff of the neck, do exactly what the bitch would do, pin it to the ground, and I'm like, "Grr, grr." So when I'm out on the trial ground, I've got those tools up my belt, like doing something good, good, good. I'm not saying, oh, Freddie, you're a good boy today, aren't you? Look at you go. No, good, good, because it has that association with that word, and I'm saying it in a nice, soft way. But if it comes in close, like I like to have that thought pattern stay out unless otherwise invited in, and if they come in uninvited, out, I'm saying that in a deep voice, that a bit of a growly voice, and they understand that because they have that association with the way it's said.
They're your conditioned markers. They know what you mean by each one of those cues. Or
Yes.
one of those markers, sorry, not your cues.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Scott, thank you very much for jumping on tonight. We really appreciate your time. We know that you're flat out, but really appreciate you putting some time aside for us this evening.
No, very good, and very pleased to have been on, and been an honour. Thank you.
No drama. Thank you. Before we sign off tonight, you'll notice I'm wearing a cool exclusive Dog Talk hat, only available at the Australian Working Stock Dog magazine. Make sure you jump on out there and support us. Everything goes back into bringing you the podcast every fortnight. Everyone that listened tonight, thank you. Everyone listening back, thank you once again. And please remember, we learn every day. And the day we stop learning from each other will be a sad one.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.